Welcome to our deep dive into a walk in the woods.
Mm.
Should, if you've ever thought about ditching everything and, heading out for an adventure, I think this one is for you.
Yeah,
Bill Bryson's book is hilarious.
absolutely.
It's insightful, and it's about his attempt to hike the Appalachian Trail
Yeah.
with his very out-of-shape friend Katz.
Hi.
And it's, more than a funny story. It's a journey of self-discovery, and it's a real testament to the power of nature, and I think a reminder that we need to protect it.
I think one of the things that is really fascinating about Bryson's book is how he starts off
Yeah.
with almost a comical naivete about what he's getting himself into.
Yeah.
He's drawn to this vastness of the Appalachian Trail, this incredible wild ribbon of a trail over 2,000 miles long. But then he
Yeah.
gets all these warnings, like the story of the guy who loses his scalp to a nearsighted owl while he's
Oh, yeah.
relieving himself in the middle of the night.
Right.
It kind of highlights this gap between his romanticized vision of what the trail's going to be like and then the reality.
Well, he's expecting like a nice stroll,
Yeah.
beautiful scenery, and he ends up like wrestling with his backpack,
Right.
the weather,
Yeah.
and cats complaining all the time.
Cats.
You can really feel the weight of those backpacks in his descriptions.
Yeah. And that image of the summit always being just out of reach,
Oh, I know.
no matter how far they hike, it's a perfect image
I know.
for the mental game of long distance hiking, you know?
Right.
You think you're there and then it's like, no, you've got so much further to go.
Yeah.
You can see how that starts to wear on Bryson a little bit.
Right.
And he has to confront the reality.
Right. And it's not just the physical demands, right? He's bumping up against his own assumptions
Yeah.
about nature and himself and what he's capable of.
Absolutely. And I think through these struggles,
Yeah.
you start to see the deeper themes emerge,
Yeah.
like the moments of what they call trail magic, like a cold Coca-Cola on a hot day, or the camaraderie with the other hikers. Those become more than just little pleasures. They really highlight how resilient the human spirit can be
Exactly.
and these unexpected connections that can happen in the most challenging environments.
Yeah. And speaking of unexpected connections, I mean, we have to talk about Mary Ellen.
We have to talk about Mary.
She's like a force of nature herself.
Yes, she is.
She's got all these quirks and boundless energy and just no sense of personal space.
Yeah, she's a great example of how Bryson uses humor
Yes.
to highlight the human side of this journey.
Yeah.
Through her, he really explores, the joys and frustrations of a shared experience,
Uh-huh.
how our differences, they challenge us, but they also make us better.
Yeah. Their attempts to ditch her are just
Oh, they're so funny.
pure comedic gold.
Yes.
But I think underneath the laughter, there's also this reflection on the bonds that we form when we're out on the trail.
Yeah.
How they can shift and change just as quickly as the landscape does.
Exactly. Those little encounters, they become these microcosms of the larger human experience. It reminds us how important it is to connect with each other, even when it's just temporary.
Yeah, and it's interesting how the dynamic between Bryson and Katz and Mary Ellen
Right.
really highlights how they're all approaching this challenge so differently.
Yes.
Katz is just fixated on, when's the next time I can be comfortable?
Right.
When's the next hotel?
When's the next shower?
Bryson's starting to shift to like what's going on the journey right now.
Yeah. He's present.
He's finding those moments of awe and reflection in the hard parts.
He is.
And I thought it was interesting when they decided to skip that section of the trail.
Yeah.
They felt so guilty,
Especially about Mary Ellen.
especially about Mary Ellen. They just left her to her own devices.
They did.
And I think it was a real turning point in the book.
Yes.
It was like they had to acknowledge that they had limitations,
Yeah.
physical and mental.
Right. It shows the difference between just blindly chasing a goal
Yeah.
versus really being present in the experience no matter what form it takes.
Yeah. It's interesting how once they kind of confront those limitations that they have,
Yeah.
that Bryson really starts to appreciate the natural world around him more.
Yeah.
He goes from like complaining about the weight of his backpack to being amazed by a spider web or just the huge scale of the forests that they're walking through.
He even points out that they hiked further in like a week than the average American walks in a year.
It's crazy, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a crazy stat when you think about it.
Yeah, it makes you realize how disconnected we are from the natural world.
Yeah.
But as he gets more connected to nature, the book takes on kind of a more serious tone. He starts talking about the environmental challenges facing the Appalachian Trail and all these wild places,
Right.
deforestation, development, climate change.
Right.
Those become things that he just can't ignore anymore.
Yeah, what struck me was how he kind of wove those environmental concerns into his story.
Yes.
It's not just this lecture about how the planet's in trouble.
Right. It's really about how those problems are showing up in the places that he's hiking through.
Like when he talks about walking through that section of forest that's been totally destroyed by logging.
Yes.
It's such a stark contrast,
Uh,
between the vision of wilderness that he had in his head
yeah.
and then seeing what humans have actually done to it.
Yeah, it's like a wake-up call, you know?
It is.
Even these places that seem so vast and wild, like the Appalachian Trail, they're still really vulnerable.
Absolutely. It makes you think about
Yeah.
the choices that we're making,
Yeah.
individually and as a society.
Right. And then his humor takes on a different tone, too.
It does.
He's not just joking about himself and cats anymore.
Right.
He's kind of using it to point out how ridiculous it is that we're so disconnected from nature.
Yeah, like when he talks about all the effort we put into making these fake environments,
Yeah, like golf courses.
Yeah, golf courses, theme parks.
Yeah,
And then we don't protect the natural ones.
makes you think.
It does. It makes you think about our priorities for sure.
It does.
It challenges us to really reconsider,
Right.
how we relate to the environment.
Yeah.
It's not just about these pristine wilderness areas,
Right.
It's about understanding that everything's connected. And even little things can have a big impact.
So it's not just about, big gestures or
Right.
political activism. It's about that everyday responsibility.
Absolutely. Making choices and, advocating for change and just remembering that
Yeah.
our actions have an impact.
I think that idea of personal responsibility is even more important today
Yeah.
as we're dealing with all these environmental problems.
And that's one of the things that makes a walk in the woods so powerful.
Yeah.
It's funny and it makes you think.
Yeah.
It makes us think about our own connection to nature and how
Yeah.
we can protect it.
I'm curious, what do you think it is about these wild places that draws us in? Why do we feel this need to go out into nature, to push ourselves?
Well, I think it's something that's like deep down inside us, like a connection to nature that's always there, even when we're surrounded by, cities and technology. It's
Okay, yeah.
we need that simplicity,
Yeah.
a place where everything just kind of fades away and we can reconnect with something bigger.
Right. It's like hitting the reset button,
Exactly.
trading your phone and your computer for the sounds of nature.
Yeah. Just being present.
Bryson talks about those moments on the trail where he could just think,
Right.
and process everything and get a new perspective.
And it's not just about peace and quiet either. It's
Yeah.
about challenging ourselves, pushing ourselves further than we think we can go. Like when Bryson was struggling with his pack.
Yeah. Or the physical demands of just being out there all day.
It was frustrating for him at the time,
I bet.
but it showed him how strong he could be.
Yeah. And that he was more resilient than he thought.
Exactly.
I always think about that saying, growth happens outside your comfort zone.
That's so true.
And this book is such a good example of that.
It is. He starts out thinking it's going to be one way.
Right.
And then he goes through all these challenges.
Yeah.
And comes out the other side completely changed.
Yeah.
Understanding himself and the world so much better.
It's not just about the physical stuff either.
No, not at all.
It's about our minds and our emotions too.
It's about learning to be okay with being uncomfortable,
Yeah.
and to find the beauty in simple things and to be open to surprises.
So for someone listening right now who wants to get outside,
Yeah.
maybe even have an adventure of their own,
Yeah.
what advice would you give them?
Well, I think the most important thing is to start small.
Okay.
You don't have to go hike the Appalachian Trail right away.
Yeah.
Find a park or a trail near you, somewhere you can just be in nature.
Okay.
And you don't need all the fancy gear or anything.
Yeah.
Just get out there.
Yeah.
Experience it.
Start small.
Exactly. Start small and, pay attention to nature.
Yeah.
Be curious, like Bryson was.
Be curious.
And as you get more comfortable,
Yeah.
you can start doing more.
Push yourself a little bit.
Yeah, but always be safe.
Okay. Good advice.
Let someone know where you're going and be prepared for the weather.
Yeah. Yeah.
Bring water and snacks.
And don't be afraid to ask for advice.
Oh, yeah. There are so many people who love being outside.
Right.
And they love helping others get started.
That's a good point.
And most importantly, have fun.
Yes.
Embrace the challenges and enjoy those little wins along the way and just,
be open to it.
yeah, be open to it.
Yeah.
Let yourself be surprised.
That's great advice.
Yeah.
So as we finish up our deep dive into A Walk in the Woods,
Yeah.
I want to leave our listeners with this.
Okay.
What would you hope to discover about yourself and the world around you?
Mm,
If you could go on a journey like hiking the Appalachian Trail,
that's a great question.
it is something to think about.
It is.
Maybe even something to do.
Maybe so.
All right. Until next time, happy trails.